Well, all right, everybody. Thanks for jumping in with me. My name is John Nemo, and I'm going to be presenting today on labor unions and social media. Here's some of my information if you're interested in knowing who the heck I am. Here's a photo of me. I'm a handsome and dashing young fellow. The point of our conversation today is really to understand how labor unions specifically can use social media. This is something where I really want you to come away from this time together knowing how you can engage members, impact negotiations, you can really drive mainstream media coverage too, and most importantly, shape public opinion. Social media is a tool that I don't think we use nearly enough. The way I explain it to people is this is literally akin to the invention of the telegraph, the telephone, and the television all rolled into one. I mean, this is literally where the future of communications is, and frankly, where the present is. So let's dive right in with some basic tips. Most important things you need to know about how to use social media. Number one, with a bullet, is to put away the bullhorn and to grow bigger ears. What I mean about this is, typically what we think of when we see social media is we're just going to amplify our message. We're going to broadcast, it's another channel to put out press releases and information about our union and what's going on. No. To go back, it's really about listening. Social media is really about listening to what people are talking about and then engaging with them and responding. If you do this, if you just sit there with a bullhorn and shout messages to people, you're going to quickly learn that you don't have any impact on social media. And unfortunately, that's probably what I would say 90 to 95% of unions, companies, any entities do. They just don't understand social media yet. So huge point. That's why I'm kind of belaboring it here. Another important tip for social media, we have to use real people. We really need to humanize our union for each other. One of the things you think about during contract negotiations is at least with the nurses here at M&A, was the hospitals, never referred to us as nurses in the press or when they were talking about us publicly. It was the union bosses, the union leadership decided at the table to do this, and this. The union, because that really, served publicly to kind of try to, make us look like a greedy union. And even with our members, then it dehumanized us. Oh, it's just a union. It's union bosses. Well, the way we combated that was with real nurses. This is one of our nurses that was at the bargaining table. We would do video updates. This is a screenshot from a YouTube video, where we would just say, okay, Cindy, you just got out of a bargaining session. Tell us what happened. And then we would immediately turn around and broadcast that video message right to the nurses in her bargaining unit. So they could see for themselves, okay, this is a coworker of mine. I know her. I've seen her on the floor. She's at the table. She's the one advocating for us. It's not the union or union bosses. Huge important tip. So again, just going back to that, you got to really use real people. You have to humanize, especially during contract negotiations. I can't stress that enough. Cindy did a great job. One other thing I want to point out too, when you're using social media, really important to try to use as much video as you can, video and photos. The reason being, if you think about how we communicate as human beings, we communicate best face to face. You can do a lot of text, you can write a lot of things and send emails and blog posts, that's fine, but we communicate much better with face-to-face interaction. You can see the emotions on a person's face, you can see their expressions that they're using, gestures, tone of voice, really goes a lot further in connecting with people when you can interact, on video. And with the way social media is today, with webcams, even with smartphone devices, FaceTime on the iPad, iPhone, very easy to do, and I'll talk more about that later. Going on to our next important tip, the 80-20 rule. So what this means is when you're using social media, especially as an organization, as a union, 80% of the time it should be about business, about work. Okay, here's what's going on, here's the latest contract negotiation, here's the latest story we want to share with you. But 20% of the time should be fun, should just be silly stuff. One of our most popular things on the M&A Facebook page is I do these photo caption contests. I throw it out there. Here's a picture of my sister's dog, right? Put in a funny caption. When people are talking about, oh, I ate another one. Oh, come on, Mom, you got two of them. I mean, Because again, think about what we use these social media channels for. I mean, if you're on Facebook, and chances are you are, because there's about 850 million of us that use Facebook, you use it for fun stuff. You use it to put up Halloween pictures of your kids, to share funny stories, to talk about, your day at work or something funny you saw on TV. So, I mean, you have to keep it light sometimes. And again, kind of the rule of thumb, the balance is 80-20. That's kind of what experts have found is the right balance for your audience. All right, so moving on. This is kind of the lifeblood of good social media strategy and policy. These three things. So I'm going to start with the most important thing. And this goes back to that bullhorn photo from earlier. But what you need to do, this is the life cycle right here, is you need to listen first, okay? Don't talk first, listen. And what I mean by that is go on Twitter. Search.twitter.com if you're going to use that channel, or go on Facebook, or just jump on Google and search for the terms that you are interested in. Nursing, nurses, in our case, contracts, strikes, things like that. Get in there and listen to what the conversations are. Think of social media like a big virtual dinner party, a cocktail party, where you're moving around from conversation to conversation. You don't just walk up to a group of people talking and go, hi, here's my take on everything. First you listen, then you engage, right? You engage with people, you respond, and see how that circle kind of works. And you just keep repeating this over and over and over. And what this does is this will build your social media following. It will build your social media influence. It will create a loyal audience. Because if you're coming into a conversation, it can't just be all about you and what you want to tell everyone. It has to be about what they're talking about, how you can help them, how you can engage them, and how you can respond. Another important aspect of social media, you have to be dedicated to it. You need to dedicate staff full time to this. 24 hours, 7 days a week. Facebook happens all the time. And so obviously you don't expect people to work 24 hours a day. But just think of it in terms of it's not something where you can post something on your Facebook page, go back, do some other stuff for 6 or 7 hours, come back and see what happened. That would be like me walking into a room full of people, shouting out a couple sentences and then running out of the room and not waiting for anyone to respond or engage with me. It's just silly. But we do that all the time on social media. We auto post or we put something up and then we leave. And then we are shocked when nobody is engaging and responding. Most important thing you can do with social media, whether it's blogs, Facebook, etc., is stick around. Be present. Engage with people. If someone comments, respond right away. Thank them. Try to move the conversation forward. Respond to their comment and suggest something else. Another important point, make it easy to post. What I mean by that is you need to really give up control. The idea, a lot of unions, a lot of leadership is very fearful, about social media. We got to control the message. We got to control the message. I really need to emphasize this. You can't. Those days are gone. It's 2011. And the way I explain it to union leaders is, whether you like it or not, these conversations are happening. People are going to be talking about the contract. They're going to be talking about union leadership. They're going to be talking about the issues that you care about. And you can't control that discussion. It's happening publicly. It's happening online. So wouldn't you rather be hosting it? Wouldn't you rather be the hub of that conversation so that you can be engaging people, converting your critics, impressing the peanut gallery that's watching, versus just putting your head in the sand saying, well, if we can't control it, we won't engage. So that's what making it easy to post means. It means make your Facebook page a place where anyone can come in anytime they want and post a photo, post a video. Because when you're out on the picket lines and say we've got 12,000 nurses on strike and we want them to share and get a sense of community, we don't want to have them jump through a bunch of fences and loops and things like that to be able to post pictures and video. Now, the flip side of that is sometimes you get crackpots or trolls or spammers that come in and just throw junk up on your page. Well, again, that goes back to the first point. You have to dedicate staff time to monitoring the page and kind of curating it and taking down inappropriate stuff. So yeah, that's just something you're going to need to do if you want to be successful. Another element I'll talk more about later is going live often. And what I mean by that is live streaming events. Very, very simple to do nowadays. We use an app called Ustream, and it's literally free. You just take an iPad or an iPhone, you push a button, and you can broadcast live on the internet. So it's basically like having your own TV channel. And that's a great way to connect your membership. We did this recently at our convention where we were able to broadcast speakers and a march, a rally, anything we wanted, and people all over the country, world for that matter, could tune in and watch. You see this happening a lot right now in 2011 with the Occupy Wall Street movement, right? People are live streaming protests, things like that. We saw it a lot in Madison, Wisconsin this last year with when they occupied the Capitol. It's a very, very powerful tool. Again, it incorporates the best in communication skills because it's face-to-face live interaction, emotion, passion. You can see the people, you can hear them, you can feel what they're feeling. So really take advantage of that. It's very simple to do. And again, the last point just echoes that, using photo and video as much as you can. Use that much more than text. Always better to have photos, always better to have videos. Humanizes your message, humanizes who you are. It's not just union bosses, and also helps connect better. All right, the things you need to know, and I alluded to this earlier. Controlling the message, gone. Forget it. Done. Just deal with it. It's okay. There are going to be critics. What you need to worry about is impressing the peanut gallery. These guys, okay? Literally, the way I explain it on M&A's Facebook page, right? We have almost 12,000 fans, okay? And so, we'll have a critic come on there and post about, I disagree with your Main Street Contract for America. I think it's wrong. I don't agree with your, issue X, Y, or Z. Okay, fine. So we engage that critic. We don't try to silence them. We don't try to censor them. I try to engage them. My goal with critics is to try to convert them into supporters. Now, of course, you're not going to win every critic over, right? Some people are just set in their ways. Much, much more important to impress the peanut gallery, these guys. Because I guarantee you, if one person posts a critical comment, there's plenty more that are thinking it, And so what you're aiming for is the mass audience. And so when you respond to that one critic and you do it professionally, respectfully, rationally, well thought out, you may change a whole bunch of people you didn't even know weren't on board yet. So again, really think about the peanut gallery watching. Don't silence critics. Don't turn them off. That will just backfire in your face. Other important point before we move on, respond in real time. You need to be on the spot. You need to have somebody dedicated. Again, engaging people as things unfold. All right, let's move on. Now, budget. Everyone talks about budgets. Well, we don't have time or money to spend on social media. My argument to that is, of course you have money for this. How much do you spend on newspaper ads? How much do you spend on printed flyers? How much do you spend on billboards, okay? Obviously, this is something where, just to do a little aside about advertising money, okay, so a full page ad right now in the Minneapolis Star Tribune newspaper, this state of Minnesota's biggest paper, is around $50,000. Okay, for an ad in a printed newspaper that runs one day of the year. You have no guarantees of how many people actually see it. You have no guarantees of how many people actually react to it or respond to it or do anything with it. Same with a billboard, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars for billboards, okay? Whereas a Facebook ad, and you can see one at the bottom of this page, literally with the way Facebook advertising works, you can set a budget and say, I don't want to spend more than $3 a day on Facebook ads. And you only pay if people actually use your ad, if it actually works. The other thing is, and so then you get an actionable result. People will like your page. People will click on your link. People will go to your website. Okay, you're getting a result for your ad dollars, and you're only paying if they click through, okay? And you set a budget. You control how much you spend every day. This is a great way to grow your Facebook page. Say you're at 0 fans and you want to get up to 10,000 in a hurry, run Facebook ads. The reason Facebook ads work is they have all the data on everyone, right? That's the big issue with Facebook is privacy. Oh my God, they know everything about me. Well, yeah, so then advertisers like me can turn around and say, I want to specifically go to this zip code in the state of Minnesota, 55125, Woodbury, Minnesota. I want to target women between the ages of 18 and 22 who have identified themselves as nurses, who are Republican, who are interested in Justin Bieber, and have children. And then I can literally tailor an ad to that specific group, and it will run only to that group. And I will only pay for that ad if they actually click through and if it works. Okay? This is an amazing tool. Again, think about what you spend at your union on print materials, on billboards, radio ads, TV ads. Not that there's anything wrong with using what I call, kind of the old school legacy media, but it's just insanely overpriced compared to what you can get online. I cannot say enough about how important it is to reallocate budget for social media, and you will get so much more bang for your buck out of it. Trust me. So let's move on. Now what we've got here is a video I'm going to run through showing some real life examples, because it's one thing to talk to you about how social media can be successful and how it can work and everything. It's a much better thing to show you. So what this video is going to do is go back to the summer of 2010. Largest nursing strike in U.S. history happened here in Minnesota. 12,000 nurses in the Twin Cities out on strike. We used social media, had amazing success. Really, this presentation is kind of born out of that time. And so I'm going to run through this video with you and show you some real life examples and of how it works. Now right here, I'm just going to talk about the power of Facebook. An amazing thing happened. So the Twin Cities Hospitals had hired a spokesperson, a very attractive blonde, former nurse, very credible, very well spoken on camera, and she was really attacking us. I mean, doing a great job from a PR perspective, really, running the hospital's talking points, calling us, greedy union, and they don't get it, and hospital finances and everything. And it really got to our nurses. They got very upset and felt like this isn't true. Who is this lady? And so our nurses just took to Google and they started searching for her. And one nurse found an amazing story, a shocking story about the chief spokesperson for the Twin Cities Hospitals. And so she just posted it on our Facebook page. And you're not going to believe what happened next. So watch this.
An emotional, difficult battle between the nurses and the hospitals. And this woman, Trish Doherty, has been in the middle of it all.
So it's not totally one nurse to so many patients.
The spokeswoman for the Twin Cities Hospitals. She's made some of the nurses so angry that this morning, one of them looked her up.
I just did a Google search. That's all.
Amy Vanderleest found an old 2006 article about Doherty's past. We've confirmed she confessed to stealing thousands from a Sioux Falls hospital when she was head of HR there. She used the money to landscape her yard.
Well, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I mean, here we have a woman who's the spokesperson for the hospitals who has a criminal history of embezzling $15,000 from a hospital.
Vanderleest posted the article on Facebook this morning, and within 3 hours, Doherty was fired. The hospitals say they just learned of her legal troubles today. Their statement went on to say, throughout this process, we've made every effort to be respectful of the nurses and the community. And this development falls short of the level of integrity the community has a right to expect. It falls short of our expectations for ourselves.
On its website, the Minnesota Nurses Union turns to pro athletes to deliver their message.
I just want to say thank you to all the wonderful Minnesota nurses out there for all the great things you guys do.
Twin Cities Hospitals also used a pro, spokeswoman Trish Doherty, to represent their point of view. Until, that is, nurses learned on the internet that Doherty, an RN herself, is also a convicted thief.
Yeah, so I mean, amazing story, right? And this happened during the heat of contract negotiations leading up to the biggest strike in U.S. history. And the Twin Cities Hospitals, $7 billion a year in revenue, 14 hospitals, all this money. They didn't even do a Google search on their spokesperson. That's a whole different story, whole different presentation. But the point is, we scored a major public relations victory at a critical time during this battle. And this was really a battle for the public, loyalty and who do you trust and who's credible in this fight that was unfolding. And this really knocked the hospitals, off kilter for a couple weeks. They were really scrambling to find a new person. And again, this was through the power of social media. We had created a community on Facebook of Minnesota nurses. They knew this was a place to come. This was the place to hang out, share ideas, share stories, and more importantly, the mainstream media had picked up on it and had already been writing articles quoting our Facebook page. So that's why, as soon as that nurse, Amy Vanderleest, posted that article, within 3 hours, the spokesperson was fired because the mainstream media was watching our Facebook page. They saw that, they're like, oh my gosh, jumped online, confirmed the story, started calling the hospitals, and the rest is history. So it has amazing reach, amazing power. Now, another important part about social media is how the mainstream media uses it and how we as union members need to interact with this and react to it. Some of these clips are going to show just how during the 2010 strike, the Twin Cities media was immediately on air saying, okay, react everyone, viewers react, share your opinions on Facebook, we'll put it on the air. So the role that you need to have as a union member is you need to have people ready to respond, people monitoring, and being able to jump in. And I'll show you in here how one of our members did just that and how it gave us some great PR.
All right, Karen, and today we're asking you about the nurses' strike on the Fox 9 Morning News Facebook page.
Our question of the day, what do you think will be the result of a one-day strike? Let's see what people are saying so far.
So, we want to know what you think. Do you think the one-day strike by these nurses will affect your health care?
You can post your opinion by going inside the box at WCCO.com/ITV. Several people have already done that this morning. For example, we got this comment from someone calling themselves Proud Nurse. This is not about money. It is about patient safety. Multiple research studies show patients are better cared for with more RNs on the job. Proud Nurse goes on to say many don't understand that nursing is not like other jobs. We literally hold lives in our hands.
Now, you have to understand, that was one of our members just being savvy, watching the morning news, jumped on her computer and threw that comment together. That was exactly the talking points that we wanted to run. To buy an advertisement on statewide TV in a primetime viewing spot in the morning would have cost us thousands and thousands of dollars. Well, we got that for free just because we had people that were savvy with social media. So again, it just pays such huge dividends to be engaged, to be monitoring and reacting in real time because the mainstream media uses it now more than ever. All right, let's move on to another example. Okay, so this is a good one. This is about, getting your word out there, finding your supporters, doing amazing things to get people engaged. I'm going to show some examples here of how we did that. Okay, so I want to set this story up before it gets too far down the line. We had put out a call on Facebook, on our website, on Twitter, everywhere, to members of the public in the Twin Cities using Facebook ads and other things. We wanted to be able to illustrate unsafe staffing stories. That was one of our big issues in the 2010 strike, was that there aren't enough nurses on the floor. It's understaffed, and that patients can suffer as a result. Dangerous situations can occur. Now, our nurses were limited by HIPAA privacy laws from describing specific situations. So that's obviously a huge tactical advantage for the hospitals because we can't really tell the stories. It's like calling the fire department and saying, my building is burning down. Well, tell me where the address is, tell me the specifics. Well, I can't, that's against the law, but just trust me, come. So again, we were stuck. So we tried to circumvent that by going right to the public. And what we found was, using social media, again, listening and engaging and responding, we were able to get these amazing stories because we were telling the truth. And so this is just one story that the mainstream media picked up on with a mom and her beautiful daughter and the dangerous situation that happened to them because of unsafe staffing. So go ahead and watch.
3. She has a rare genetic disorder, Cornelia de Lange syndrome. She's been in the hospital 24 times and on the picket line once. Emma's mom decided to march for the nurses and talk for them after seeing this Share Your Story section on the Minnesota Nurses Association website. A few weeks ago, during a stay at Minneapolis Children's Hospital, Emma's IV came loose.
There was nothing going in, and so blood started flowing back out and was all over her clothes, all over her bed. I'm afraid to know what would have happened if I wouldn't have been there to see this. How long would it have gone unnoticed?
Robin Kissock says she tries to stay with Emma because she thinks nurses are stretched too thin.
That's pretty pretty strong emotionally, and as opposed to, we're just talking about money here.
Joe Daly is a law professor, an arbitrator, and a mediator. He says patient testimonials can really grab the attention of the general public.
Okay, so that's one example of obviously amazing public support. Again, running our talking points on the evening news, it was perfect. I mean, and again, to pay for that kind of coverage and exposure is just, you know, thousands of dollars, $10, $20, $30,000. Plus, it's an advertisement, so people know, oh, gee, you're running your own message, you're paying for that. When the media covers a story like that, it gives it extra validation, extra truth in the, you know, the minds and the hearts of the public. So again, that's another way that social media can really engage. Now you're going to see some clips here from some pro athletes. Basically what we did, you know, we just got creative in 2010. You know, having covered professional sports, I knew a lot of the PR guys in town and just was like, well, everybody loves nurses. You know, I bet some of the players have moms or friends that are nurses, and maybe they'll do a little YouTube video for us. Again, it's just this old thing, you know, the worst that anybody can say is no. So I just called and asked the teams, and they're like, yeah, sure, you know, we love nurses, and our players would be happy to do it. So again, we use these clips on our social media channels, YouTube, etc., to really fire up our nurses, to really say, hey, you know what, the public's got your back. People love you guys. Don't forget that. Don't get beaten down by the battle with the hospitals.
This is Kevin Love of the Minnesota Timberwolves. We want to thank all the nurses in Minnesota for all the work you guys do. Yeah, she works in neonatal intensive care. She works with preemie babies. My little sister Emily, who's now 16, is in great health. She was born as a preemie as well, so you know, she, you know, works there day and night trying to you know, help babies and save lives. So that's what she does. And you know, just having a mom as a nurse, you know, every time I got sick, I knew I was in good care. So you know, I'm definitely I'm very appreciative of all the nurses, you know, especially having a mom as one, but, you know, all around the country as well.
Hi, I'm Derek Bugard from the Minnesota Wild. I want to thank all you nurses in Minnesota for all the work that you do. Probably being a nurse, you know, it's just one of those things that they see some pretty bad things, and they got to work through it, you know, so I think being a nurse would be a lot harder than a National Hockey League player.
It's Al Jefferson for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I'd like to thank all the Minnesota nurses for all the hard work y'all do. Thanks.
Go Vikings, let's win this game. Go Vikings, honor your name.
Hi, this is Chris Cluey from the Minnesota Vikings, and I just want to say thank you to all the wonderful Minnesota nurses out there for all the great things you guys do. Thank you. Yeah, actually, my mom is an anesthesiologist, so she works with lots of nurses. I have actually have a pretty big fan base back in California, and all the nurses in the hospital where my mom works. As my mom describes it, the nurses do all the work, and then the doctors take all the credit. So it's the.
I love that line. Now, moving on to another example, and getting back to what I was mentioning earlier, you have to give up control. And I find that with folks that don't understand social media, this is what they're most afraid of, is, oh, I don't want to give up control. I want to control the message. And traditionally, you know, unions have been able to do that. Companies, organizations with, you know, different campaigns. It just cannot happen in 2011. So you need to let go of that. And this is, you know, just an example that, you know, both sides are going to be represented. You're going to have critics. You're going to take shots. And it cuts both ways. But the most important part is that you get engaged, that your voice is being heard, and again, reflect back to that peanut gallery slide of, you know, the audience watching. And so this just shows some examples, too, of how the mainstream media was very quick to pick up on our social media channels, Facebook in particular. Any negative comments, you know, they would use those in their stories. And, you know, to try to balance it. That's their job. So let's take a look. All right, and then another example here, the importance of face-to-face video messages. Again, cannot beat this point in the ground enough because I don't see enough people doing it. So I'm going to keep harping on it until more people do it. It's so easy to do. All you need is an iPhone or an iPad, you know, a simple video camera. It's not hard anymore to shoot video. And again, the benefits are so obvious, so I'm not going to belabor those points. But go ahead and look, and you can see kind of how we've used it.
I'm Cindy Olson. I'm one of the nurses on your bargaining team for the Minnesota nurses. Yesterday, we had a negotiation session with the hospitals. All the hospitals were present. I guess the one good thing about negotiations yesterday was that we did meet face-to-face with the mediators. The top people from each side were able to at least meet and converse some. The sad part is they were unwilling to meet this weekend, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and progress and hopefully come to a settlement.
Now, I want you to just pause and think about what Cindy Olson just said there and how that impacts contract negotiations. You know, typically what we saw in 2010 was, you know, both sides meet at the table, you know, then the next day the boss, you know, the employer will send an email to all the nurses on the work account with their spin on how talk went, and, you know, the union bosses did this and this and this and weren't willing to listen. Well, think about the power of a video message right after the fact, posted on YouTube, shared with all the nurses in that bargaining unit, straight from the horse's mouth, straight from one of your teammates, one of your coworkers, doing what Cindy just did. Hey, I was there. I'm not a union thug or a union boss. I'm a nurse, you know, and I went in and we tried to do this and they said that. And I think that has such an important role in keeping, you know, solidarity within the bargaining units. So don't miss that. Take advantage of video, use it wisely and quickly. Okay, so that was just a video example, some real life examples, and obviously we had some incredible success in 2010. Now I want to move on and just talk a little bit about some of the practical tools that you can use for social media. You know, obviously there's the live component, and I talked a little about that. We have a live channel on Ustream. It's very easy to set up. Again, you can use your iPhone, your iPad, a computer with a web camera and an internet connection, and boom, you're live. And again, think about, you know, streaming events, speakers, meetings, actions, protests, picket lines, anything to get your community more involved, especially if your membership is spread out around the state. We found that to be a huge way to connect people. Obviously, you know, the gold standard for social media tools right now, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of them have different audiences. All of them have a little bit different nuance as far as the strategy and the technique. But again, I wouldn't worry as much about the tools as I would worry about the thought process you put into it. Again, it goes back to those circles I showed you. You need to listen to people on these channels, you need to engage with them, and you need to respond to them. It's a very simple formula, very simple. You don't need to worry as much about the high-tech gizmos and gadgets and tools as much as just being a real person. You know, think about your real life conversations or the real life cocktail parties you go to and how you interact with different groups of people and listen. That's all it is. It's very simple. The last thing, you can see the iPhone up there. We have an app, and that has done amazing things. And I'm not going to go into details on this particular presentation, but just to quickly summarize, the iPhone app that we created does a few things. It literally lets our members carry around all of the relevant information about M&A, their union, in the palm of their hand. So, you know, our member leaders, our organizers can go into a hospital and say, hey, you know, this happened last week. Here, I want to show you a video. Or our political group can walk in. They're in a meeting full of people. Everyone's fired up about this initiative or this thing on the ballot. You know what? Let's call our legislators. Let's get fired up and let them know where we stand. Well, what if you could just say to everyone in the room, okay, pull out your iPhone, pull out your Droid, okay, open up the M&A app. We actually have a feature in our app that lets you locate by your zip code or even by GPS who your legislators are, and then it pulls up their phone number. You can touch it right there and call their office. You can touch another button and email them right from your phone. So again, the beauty of an app is in the heat of the moment, you can get people to take action. That's a step that you didn't have a couple years ago. Other things our app does is, it lets you watch live. So say you're at work or, in the car or whatever, as long as you have a 3G connection, if something's happening and you want to watch live, you can do it on your phone. And the last really valuable thing that our app does is it allows nurses to report unsafe staffing. Again, I talked about what a big issue that is for us. So we integrated our online form to report unsafe staffing onto the app. It literally takes 90 seconds. You're in the heat of the moment at work. You're frustrated. You just had a really unsafe incident. Well, you don't have to wait until you get home 5 hours later and try to remember everything. You can pull out your phone and in 90 seconds submit it all. We have the documentation. We can go back to the hospital, the employer, to talk about this. We can use these submissions for political efforts, lobbying efforts, PR efforts. Again, a huge investment. It's amazing to me what we can get out of something like an app, an iPhone app. I'll give you an example of the cost. Okay, everyone talks about, oh, it's too expensive. Okay, so probably to get a good iPhone app done with the kind of features that ours has is probably somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000, right, for an iPhone Android version. Okay, compare that to a newspaper ad. Again, go back to the Star Tribune. You could have an ad one day in the Sunday paper for 50 grand, or you could have an app, that goes infinitely forever and has so much more potential. So again, think about that when you're trying to budget for these. The last tool I want to talk about is Google Plus, there in the bottom right corner. Google Plus, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of Google's answer to Facebook. It's rapidly emerging as a competitor to Facebook. Basically, it does all the same things. It just does them in a better way, a cleaner way. It has a much more appealing layout. But the biggest advantage Google Plus has is something called Google Hangouts. What these are is live video chats that are incredibly easy to use. So you can jump on there with your webcam, even with some of the smartphones that have cameras, you can do it through the Google Plus app, I think. Basically, you and up to 10 other people can have a video conversation live. And it uses this kind of state-of-the-art voice and face recognition software so that it moves back and forth kind of seamlessly between the people as we talk and have a virtual meeting. You can share videos in a Google Hangout. You can share documents and presentations. Think about that for your bargaining units. If you have a small group of people or even just a staff meeting, people are spread out around the Twin Cities, around the state, wherever, jump on Google Plus. It's completely free. You can make it private. It's a great way, again, to have interaction with people. Even thinking in terms of your executive leadership or your union president, let's pick a group of 10 people to interact with, and do a live chat and respond to questions. It's a great way to communicate. So here's just a quick video clip, actually, of how I got featured on a Google Hangout on WCCO TV and just how easy the technology is.
Ultimately, it just shows how addicted we are to Facebook.
Local PR guy John Nemo joined 4 other digital experts in a video chat. Facebook doesn't have this feature. We had to go to the new social network, Google+.
This is like the nerd capital of Minnesota. It's almost like there's a social media arms race going on right now. People are constantly trying to one-up each other and keep up. And
that's why.
So that's just an example of Google+. And that's really the end of my presentation. I want to say thank you for listening. I would love to hear from you. If you have questions, you can see my business card right there and my email right at the top. Would love to hear from you. This is something that I really cannot say enough about. I mean, I just think it's that important. To go back to my line, social media is akin to the invention of the telephone, the telegraph, and TV rolled into one. This is something we cannot afford to miss. So, hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's given you some practical tips you can use. And again, feel free to drop me a line. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.